Welcome back to WoW Sentiment, your daily breakdown of what the World of Warcraft community is talking about. Today is March 26, 2026, and the big topic dominating the conversation: raids, dungeons and Mythic Plus. We scraped Reddit, the official Blizzard forums, and Wowhead to bring you the full picture. The overall sentiment sits at 15% positive, 73% neutral, and 12% negative. That makes this one mostly neutral. Interestingly, most of the community isn't taking a strong stance either way. There's a wait-and-see attitude, which usually means players want more information before making up their minds. That level of restraint is pretty unusual for the WoW community. Let's break down what's driving these numbers. Raids, dungeons and Mythic Plus is the single biggest topic in today's discussion, making up 50% of all conversations we tracked. Right behind it, general discussion accounts for 25%. We're also seeing significant discussion around class tuning and balance, add-on and UI discussion. Now, a 15% positive and 12% negative split might not seem dramatic on the surface, but context matters. WoW communities tend to be vocal critics, so these numbers reflect a community that's actively engaged with the topic, not just passively consuming content. But the numbers only tell part of the story. Let's hear what players are saying. Starting with the main topic, raids, dungeons and Mythic Plus. Feral Druid dashes ahead of the pack. MOP Classic Phase 3 Throne of Thunder damage per second rankings posted one day. Agabi popular today. We are looking at the D. It's interesting they took out the alt catch-up crafting bonus for completing He raid campaign or finishing representatives. Note, this is only going to happen in dungeons and raids due to the secret value system. Incorrect, bartender breaks when in combat out in the open. This comment comes from a thread titled "The Weekly Delve Quest gave me a weapon from the unavailable raid," and it really captures the core of what people are feeling. With 15% of the community leaning positive, the split in opinion is clear when you dig into the actual conversations. This is a perspective you see a lot in these threads. It comes from a different conversation entirely, but it ties into the same core issue. Players aren't just complaining for the sake of it. They're drawing on years of experience with the game to make their points. And when you see this level of detail in community feedback, it shows just how invested people still are in making the game better. Moving on to the second biggest topic, general discussion, which makes up 25% of today's discussion. While raids, dungeons and Mythic Plus is getting the most attention, general discussion is generating its own share of passionate responses. These two topics are more connected than they might seem at first glance, since changes in one area of the game inevitably ripple out to affect others. Comments like this show that the community isn't just reacting emotionally. Players are thinking critically about how these changes affect the game long term. And that kind of thoughtful feedback is exactly what keeps the conversation productive. Beyond these main topics, we're also seeing discussion around class tuning and balance at 17% and add-on and UI discussion at 8%. Each of these deserves its own deep dive, but for now, the main story is clearly centered around raids, dungeons and Mythic Plus. Now let's take a look at what's happening on the news side. Wowhead has been covering some developments that tie directly into today's discussion. First up, Feral Druid dashes ahead of the pack. MOP Classic Phase 3 Throne of Thunder damage per second rankings. Feral Druid dashes ahead of the pack. MOP Classic Phase 3 Throne of Thunder damage per second rankings. Posted one day. Agabi popular. Today, we are looking at the damage per second rankings during the week of March 24 for Mists of Pandaria Classic Phase 3 in Throne of Thunder. For this analysis, we will use data provided by Warcraft Logs Throne of Thunder Statistics. Warcraft Logs Throne of Thunder Statistics. Looking for more insight into class performance for Mists of Pandaria Classic? We're including the chart showing all percentiles results to paint a better picture for all specs. Statistics displayed below show data for 25-player heroic difficulty. But that's not the only news worth covering. Also making headlines, catch up on the Voidspire raid story with story mode. Once the boss is defeated, the final raid cutscene will play for players to experience. No loot drops from the boss in story mode, however, the quest, the Voidspire, can be completed. queuing into story mode will require completion of the Foothold storyline, including the Charge of the Vanguard quest. Once completed, talk to Venzilian the Reality Cracker at WoW 2405 44.666.0 to queue into story mode. Completing this quest offers players 1510 and a Champion Track 250 item level cloak of your choice. These developments add important context to the community discussion we've been tracking. When official changes happen alongside community debates, it tells us that Blizzard is at least aware of the conversation, even if they haven't directly responded yet. Let's hear from a few more community voices before we wrap up. This is the kind of feedback that adds depth to the conversation. It's one thing to see sentiment percentages, but hearing individual players explain their perspective is where you really start to understand what's driving the numbers. Across all the threads we track today, the pattern is clear: the WoW community has a lot to say about raids, dungeons and Mythic Plus, and they're not holding back. What makes this conversation particularly interesting is the range of perspectives. You've got veterans with years of experience, newer players bringing fresh eyes, and everyone in between weighing in with their own take. So where does that leave us? Today's sentiment breakdown shows 15% positive, 73% neutral, and 12% negative. That mostly neutral reading tells us that the community's overall mood is one of watchful patience. Raids, dungeons and Mythic Plus dominated the conversation at 50% of all discussion, with general discussion close behind at 25%. With Wowhead reporting on Feral Druid dashes ahead of the pack Mop Classic Phase 3 Throne of Thunder, this is clearly a story that's still developing. We'll be keeping an eye on how the community reacts as more information comes out. That's your WoW sentiment breakdown for today. We track these conversations daily so you don't have to scroll through hundreds of Reddit threads and forum posts yourself. If you found this analysis useful, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss tomorrow's report. Hit that notification bell so you're the first to know when the next community breakdown drops. And drop a comment letting us know your take on today's topics. Do you agree with the sentiment numbers? We read